All right, let's jump right into this explainer because it completely shatters what we thought was possible in software engineering. AI coding assistants are everywhere right now, you know that. But what if I told you most teams are using them totally wrong? Today, we're unpacking the exact blueprint of how a massive, fully functional e-commerce platform was built from scratch in record time, and with a level of quality that traditional dev teams literally only dream of. We aren't just talking about generating a few quick scripts here, we are talking about engineering an entire e-commerce empire using a methodology called spec-driven development.
Get this, the scale here is absolutely staggering. We are talking about exactly one single developer doing 99% of the heavy lifting. Think about that. In a traditional setup, building a highly complex e-commerce platform with dynamic carts, event-specific sales, complex photo layouts, that takes a whole squad, right? Front-end, back-end, cloud infrastructure engineers. But by using AI as a relentless execution engine instead of just a glorified autocomplete, one human mind became the architect, the director, and the reviewer for an entire virtual engineering department. And that single developer built this massive e-commerce site from zero to a live production environment in exactly 4 months. 4 months! Usually that barely gets you out of initial planning and stakeholder meetings, but here it resulted in a live, functional product processing actual real-world transactions.
Just to put the sheer volume into perspective, they didn't just build a simple little prototype. They generated a massive code base. 200,000 lines of code. We are talking over 130,000 lines of Go for the backend, 60,000 lines of TypeScript for the front end, thousands of lines of SQL, all deployed on a fully automated AWS cloud infrastructure. Writing that much code manually? It's mathematically impossible for one person in 4 months. The AI wrote the code? Sure, but it did so under absolute ironclad human direction.
But wait, this is the real miracle right here. 0 serious production bugs after launch. Let that sink in for a second. 0. No massive data corruption, no server crashes at 2 a.m., no frantic emergency patches. Normally, moving this incredibly fast means you are breaking things left and right. But in this case, the speed was exponential and the bugs were literally non-existent. So, how does that even happen?
Well, it wasn't magic. It was all thanks to a framework called spec-driven development, or SDD. You know, most developers treat specifications like an annoying chore, a messy Google Doc, or a Slack thread that gets completely outdated the second someone starts typing code. In SDD, the spec is the code. A simple markdown file becomes your absolute, strict, single source of truth. It's the formal deliverable. You don't just vaguely tell the AI to build a feature. You hand it an unbreakable blueprint, and it executes it flawlessly.
Let's look at how this pipeline actually works in practice. Everything is locked in before a single line of code is written. First, a human spends maybe 30 minutes writing a requirements.md file, defining exactly what we need. Then, the AI reads it and proposes how to build it in a design.md file. The human reviews that, and finally, the AI breaks it all down into granular, step-by-step instructions in a tasks.md file. Only after all of that does the actual coding begin.
Because look, if you want to maximize your AI's coding speed, you absolutely cannot just say, hey, make a checkout page and hope for the best. That is a recipe for total disaster. Without specs, vague intents leads straight to AI hallucination. It guesses what you want, builds a chaotic mess, and you spend days untangling technical debt. But with strict markdown specs, the AI completely understands your exact intent, the entire system context, and the rigid rules it has to follow. It implements perfectly in just an hour or two.
It's all about maximizing your output. By investing just 30 minutes into writing a clear, structured markdown file, you are unlocking days' worth of automated, high-quality coding. The spec essentially acts as your accelerator pedal. You spend a tiny fraction of time upfront clarifying your thoughts, and the AI instantly converts that clarity into thousands of lines of perfectly structured code.
Okay, but let's circle back to that zero bug claim. How do we actually prevent serious bugs? It happens right here in the design phase. Before writing any code, the AI cross-references the new requirements against the entire existing knowledge base, which, in this case, grew to over 55 specification files. It automatically scans for logical contradictions. It's essentially doing an automated system-wide architectural review in mere seconds.
Instead of the traditional chaos where you write buggy code and scramble to fix it later, SDD ensures those bugs never even make it into the specifications in the first place. Imagine you're adding an event-specific shopping cart. Traditionally, you'd code it, deploy it, and then realize days later it completely broke your global shared cart logic. Yikes. But under SDD, the AI flags that exact contradiction instantly during the markdown phase.
The bug is quite literally killed before it's ever coded.
Next up, we guarantee this insane level of quality through automated property-based testing. Now, traditional QA involves humans writing highly specific test cases, right? If user inputs A, expect B. But let's be honest, we are terrible at imagining every single edge case. With property-based testing, you don't write individual test cases. You define universal rules, or properties. Then the AI automatically blasts your code with thousands of randomly generated bizarre inputs just to verify those rules hold true.
To put that into perspective, let's look at a photo grid layout for our e-commerce site. You define the rules. Row height must be strictly uniform, total width absolutely cannot exceed the screen, and no uploaded photos can be left out. The AI then automatically tests thousands of crazy image aspect ratios and weird screen sizes. It catches those wildly obscure 1 in a million layout breaks that a human tester clicking around on a browser would just never ever find.
And your return on investment here is simply undeniable. We're talking about QA time for a feature plummeting from a whole week down to just half a day. That's roughly a 93% decrease. And because these rules are rock solid in the markdown and tested automatically, impossible master data errors, like a system accepting a negative shipping cost, are blocked completely at the input level. Zero unnoticed regressions. But, and this is a massive but, we have to respect the boundary of final judgment. Humans decide the what and the why. AI handles the how. This whole explainer isn't about AI replacing developers. It's about radically redefining their roles. The human mind has to be reserved for business priority, user empathy, and subjective design choices. The AI? It's your ultimate laborer. It generates the code, it sets up the cloud infrastructure, and it runs the tests.
Blurring that line is what we call the fatal anti-pattern. If you ask an AI, hey, is this feature really necessary? That's a business decision. Don't do that. Or trusting it with subjective choices like, does this spacing look pretty to a human eye? Or worst of all, blindly deploying AI-generated code to production that you literally don't understand. If you push code without a clear spec as your safety net, the second something breaks, you're toast, because you don't even understand your own system.
So this brings us to a really powerful synthesis. True speed and rapid quality require what we call the Trinity: spec-driven development, artificial intelligence, and human judgment. It's a multiplication equation. SDD is your blueprint, AI is your execution engine, and human judgment is the why. The success of this massive e-commerce build wasn't because they bought some magic AI tool. It's because that one developer perfectly mastered this exact trinity.
And this trinity is completely unbreakable. Think about it. If you have the best AI on the world but no STD blueprint, your multiplier is 0. You're just generating unmanageable spaghetti code faster, and technical debt explodes. If you just do SDD without AI, your quality is great, but development is painfully slow. And if you rely on AI and SDD but totally remove the human judgment, you might build a technically flawed product that absolutely nobody actually wants to use.
So, what's the takeaway for you here? It's simple. For your very next feature, don't just dive straight into your IDE. Take 30 minutes, just 30 minutes to write a structured requirements.md file before you touch a single line of code. Feed that into your AI and compare the result to what happens when you just give it a raw, vague prompt. I guarantee you, once you see the staggering difference in code quality and bug reduction, you will never go back to developing the old way. Because once you master this process, you really have to ask yourself a bigger question. If defining the exact rules of the game in a markdown file is the only true way to unlock AI speed, are you still just writing code, or have you evolved into a systems architect? The developers who thrive in this new era won't be the fastest typists, they are going to be the clearest thinkers. And I don't know about you, but I think that is an incredibly exciting shift in how we build the future.